Now to the win of the round. Warriors defeating the Penrith Panthers 22-20. I tell you what, the one thing that we have been just consistently saying over the last month of rugby league for the Warriors is lack of intensity. They look like they're going through the motions. And so injuries, they're decimated by injuries. So what does this do? It brings in New South Wales Cup, Q Cup level players. But what do those guys bring when their careers are on the line, when they're playing for contracts? They bring intensity, they bring in the desire to win, and they proved to the players that are currently sitting out right now and the rest of the squad that our biggest problem isn't our roster, it isn't our game plan, even though there are some things that need to be tinkered with. It's the intensity that we were playing with it last year. Now we need to find that intensity again, and they found it on the weekend versus the Penrith Panthers. Yes, the Penrith Panthers were uncharacteristically poor, but at the end of the day, look at those two sides on paper. It was an absolutely incredible win from the Warriors. It's a great sign for the club when you're talking about depth and the culture that is being instilled in these young guys coming through. And it's also a wake-up call for some of the senior players to go, this is how it's done.
100%. I was over in New Zealand last week. I watched Marcelo Montoya play reserve grade. Paul Roach, that came on and played hooker for 70 minutes, he didn't even play last week in reserve grade. He was sitting on the sideline. For those guys to come back into this team, Leotau played in that game. He was fantastic as well. All these guys went over into first grade, 2 Magic rounds to take on the Panthers, and all brained it. So impressive.
Yep. Tuapiki come in, killed it. And we're talking about a Panthers side. So this is, they got their whole back line, full strength. Obviously got Cole in for Cleary. 7 is obviously Jerome Luai. We're talking about Samoa 7. They've got Leota, Kenny, Fisher. Like, this is their forward pack. This is their team. I know everyone knows the team, but Edwards, Taruva, Tungo, To'o, Luai, Leota, Kenny, Fisher Harris, Garner, Martin, Yo. Like, this is, outside of Cleary out, you're nearly at full strength here with the Penrith Panthers. 3-time premiership against, this is the opposition. Tuapiki, New South Wales Cup. Wateni Zalesniak, gun.
Leotau.
Leotau. There's an L for some reason. Leotau, rookie. Pompey, New South Wales Cup. Montoya got dropped in New South Wales Cup, back in. Their halves, Charles Nickel-Klukstad and Tomate Martin. Adam Fanua-Blake, obviously a gun. Wade Egan, gun. Bunty Afoa, solid.
Wade played 12 minutes though.
Went off.
True, that is true. Barnett on an edge because they're decimated by injury. Now ended up playing a little bit in the front row as well, so he moved it around. Dylan Walker came up. So you look at these two sides compared to each other, like, it's genuinely night and day on paper. Yeah. Now I know they still had some of their key forwards in, but then the loss of Wade Egan almost erases that. It is a genuinely, it could be a season-defining win for the club.
It was so relieving, like, obviously not as a Warriors fan, but there's just a collective sigh across footy fans to be like, it was been so impressive what we've seen from the Warriors the last 18 months. And the last month you've just gone, it's just all gone to waste. Like, was it all just a hype moment? You know, they'd got up, everything was going well, but the wheels were falling off. And to have all those players out against a near enough full-strength Panthers outfit, it's a remarkable victory from them, away from home as well. I know Penrith were too, but they're still travelling to Australia. I'd love to know exactly what's just going through Webby's mind against his old team and just going, what his game plan was exactly on, we'll exploit them this way, and this way, because it was so special. And you boys already touched on it, but just the cut players that stepped up, particularly the two centres, they were tremendous in this. They caused so much havoc down the edges.
Mate, and the best thing about the win, I think the best thing, is the wake-up call to the rest of the squad.
Yeah.
It genuinely is. Like, put it this way, if they were full strength and they beat this Penrith side, we'd be sitting here saying, what a great win.
Yep.
So that is even more of a warning shot to the starting side of, guys, clearly, we haven't been honest with ourselves on how hard we should be ripping and tearing on the field. Clearly, we haven't held ourselves enough accountable that our essentially reserve grade backline can go up there and, you know, Egan goes down, everything, and get a win over the Penrith Panthers that, you know, essentially full strength outside Cleary. Now, granted, this isn't, you know, with Cleary, they are a much different beast. But as I said, even if the Warriors were full strength and they got this win, we'd be saying it's a great win.
I'll add another notch to it as well. Adam Fanua-Blake, who has carried a lot of what they've done this season, he's been their best week in, week out. He had his quietest game of the season. It was a bit weird, like
62 run meters.
Yeah, so 7 runs, 62 metres. He played 49 minutes. He always plays big minutes in his first stint, goes off for 10, 15 minutes, pending game situation. Then he comes back on at the end and finishes it and plays his, around about 65 minutes. Came back on for a really short stint in this one. So it was 11 minutes, his second stint when he came back on, then went off for the last 10 or so minutes. It was his quietest game all year, and they still got the job done against Penrith.
He's probably injured. That's why he played such little minutes and they're so decimated by injury. Because that's the only thing that could explain that. What do you reckon?
The other thing that impressed me about the Warriors is the game could not have started any worse. They kicked the kick-off out on the full and conceded a try in the first minute. So you throw that in on top of all the injuries, all that sort of stuff as well, and the players they were missing. That was a lot of ticker showing yesterday. And I got to say, Suncorp Stadium was absolutely rocking. There were so many Warriors fans that came across, and they really took over that whole Caxton Street. You could feel them all come down. They were so loud, and they were so chuffed with it all yesterday. So just a great result for rugby league,
mate. When they won, it was like a grand final. They were so loud.
Yeah,
so loud.
What have we sort of said all year that when Wade Egan's not there and when Chance isn't at fullback, they struggle.
Yeah.
Wade plays 12 minutes. Mate, the bloke that came in, Paul Roach, he hasn't played hooker since round 5.
He played 67 minutes or something.
Yeah, insane.
Mental. Absolutely mental.
What have you said to him over there last week, Rude? Clearly,
well, I think it was me going over there last week, Roasty being part of the fans, the squad yesterday.
1 from 1 since he rebranded to the Hungy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Something in it.
Something in that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, in regards to performances, I thought Jazz Tavanga was absolutely outstanding. I thought that he played the best that you could hope what his skill set can deliver. Fast around the ruck with deceptive footwork, relatively strong in contact for being a smaller body. I thought the Penrith Panthers really struggled to handle him. Honestly, it's probably the best I've seen Tavanga play in over a year. I thought he was outstanding, and I'm hoping that this can be his. I'm hoping that this can be his blueprint going forward. I'm hoping that we see some games where he's got an error here or there, whereas this game I felt like he just kept it extremely simple: run hard, tackle hard, don't look for any silly offloads or anything like that, and just get through your work, mate. He was, I thought he was outstanding.
I love Jazz Tavanga. Even when he plays poorly, it's only because he's trying too hard. Like when he has bad games, that's all it is, that he's just trying to create something out of nothing. Was a hooker coming through. He's just turned himself into a tough front row forward, an undersized front row forward who just goes at the game. Such a good player. I was in Auckland last week, as I said, and as I was walking through the gym, Marata Nekore was doing his rehab. That was the most intimidating thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Big boy.
Oh my God, monster.
Yeah.
And that's him injured too.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's their injury list is substantial. I don't think they get, although it doesn't excuse that month of footy. I've some Warriors fans trying to excuse their month of footy with the injuries they've had, but I just go, I just disagree, because I think the Warriors, before that month of footy was a premiership threat. And when I say premiership threat, I put them on the level of Storm, Penrith, Broncos, Roosters, and potentially even Sharks now. And I just don't see the Storm, Broncos, Panthers or Roosters. I don't see them dropping those games all in a row like the Warriors did. They lost to the Knights, Dragons, got dominated by the Dragons, to Titans, and there's one other one. They lost to those 3 in a row. Dragons, Titans, Knights. I don't see Penrith, Storm, Broncos, Roosters doing that this year.
And, I know it's something we talk about occasionally, but even when I was over there last week, just having a look at their schedule over the next few weeks, mate, the amount of times the Warriors are finishing games at 6 p.m. and their flights at 8 p.m. and they're skipping recoveries to go to airports, to get on planes, to... Anything that surprised me, I just assume the Warriors, whenever they fly to and from, they're not sitting in business.
No way.
Those boys are getting jammed in economy, carrying injuries still in.
Really?
Yeah.
It's all economy.
Yeah. When you think about it, it makes sense, because it would cost an absolute fortune.
Yeah. And another thing that people, because it's an international flight, you've got to be at the airport sitting around for ages compared to a normal flight.
Yeah, well, I was talking, and I won't say who the player was, but there was a player a couple of weeks ago who was injured after their game, who they were trying to sort out, then they just had to go to get on the flight. He sat on the flight home to New Zealand in his boots, shorts and jersey still.
What?
Yeah.
Can you imagine after playing 70 minutes in the middle, Adam Fanua Blake, and then jumping on a plane 3 hours later and sitting in the middle of, in between two blokes on a
Two other massive blokes.
Yeah, economy.
That's exactly
back
what
to
it is.
NZ.
Yeah.
Like, how's that for
Without a
recovery?
Craig Gower as well.
It's something that even though the Cowboys have only been in Queensland for most of this year, but when they do go to Sydney and that, like, it's a long trip from Townsville. So great stuff. I think that what it did prove a positive and a negative. Tomato Martin was absolutely outstanding. I think it proved that he's not a 6. I think he's an out-and-out 7. Watching him play, especially that second half, I just don't know if he has the running game in him to be a 6 in today's game, because I thought he was outstanding at 7.
Just to knock them all off in one hit, the spine. Tane Torpicki dropped earlier in the season, comes back in, scores the match winner from him, kicked a clutch sideline conversion, just did not miss a beat. Charnson Cook-Lookstad moves into 5'8". I don't remember ever seeing him play 5'8" at NRL level. Might have happened, but I don't believe so. Not only there, but like I sort of thought, all right, he'll play right edge where he does a lot of his best work from fullback. Played left edge. Tomorrow went to right. He was brilliant. And then Tomato Martin, they said, as an out-and-out 7 running the show, was brilliant as well. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Like, Tomato Martin goes to 7, kicks for 600 metres. Like, outstanding stuff. And just some of his silky hands. You know what else I loved? Is they were hitting short, hitting the lead runners instead of this out the back, out the back, out the back. And maybe that's a mixture of the fact that Charns was in at 6 rather than at fullback. But just, they were building pressure around the ruck as well. Like, that's something that, I feel like they just fell way too in love with, out the back, out the back. And Tomato Martin just said, I think it was actually 2 tries that were lead runners on the edges there on that tram line.
Oh, it was interesting. I think it might have been Torpicki they spoke to after the game, and he just slipped in during it that, it was obviously Penrith. Webby knows them inside out, so he had a few things up his sleeve as well.
Yeah.
I just loved hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You add on top of it, so the Egan injury 12 minutes in the first half, they also lost Jackson Ford and Marcelo Montoya to HIAs and were off for extended periods. Like, they had everything go against them.
Nothing went their way. Yeah. Nothing whatsoever.
Yeah. Crazy. Incredible win for the club, and hopefully it's a turning point. Like, hopefully it genuinely wakes them up to go, you know what, like, this is the level that we have to kind of work at. They lost the penalty count as well, I think. What is that? Oh, about even. But 7 penalties to 6, ruck infringements 0 to 1, inside the 10, 1 to 1. So yeah, about the same with the penalty count. So it's not like they won, that battle wasn't like they had all these penalties that went their way. It was relatively even. So yeah, really, really good stuff from
at least
the
they're
Warriors.
back at home this week and they play Sunday Arvo 4 p.m. So
yeah, that'd be so good at Mount Smart. Okay, on to the Penrith Panthers. Unfortunately, I feel like this loss has been kind of coming for about a month. Now, not this dramatic where they're playing a team as under strength as the Warriors were, but I do think that they've been quite flat for a while now. I think they started the year really well. Obviously, the loss to Melbourne, but then after that, they kind of really turned it on. The last month or so of footy for them, they've had a relatively easy draw. I'm trying to think. So they've had the Bulldogs, they've had the Rabbitohs, can you get up who they've played in the last month? And so that's kind of protected them from
Cowboys.
So like super, super soft draw. It's not their fault, but it's kind of protected them maybe from a loss or two.
Well, since they lost to Manly, they went by Tigers, Cowboys, Rabbits, Dogs.
Yeah, and so I think that because they are such a great organisation, even when they're not playing well, they can still get wins against bottom tier sides. And look, what's crazy is this Warriors side is still a bottom tier side, even with full strength because they're at the bottom of the table. So I don't think they expected to lose this game, but at the same time, I do think this has been something that's kind of been building for at least a month with the Panthers.
Yeah, and we'll get to, there are certainly things that we can be critical of, which we'll get to shortly, but overall, we're finally starting to see this Penrith Panthers team have a bit of a lull and have a bit of, I say a lean period, but they've still won games in it. But you're right, they've looked a little bit gassed and just they've been up for so long. The reality is, for so long, teams hadn't gone back-to-back premierships because, we speak about it timelessly, but, you win a premiership, you become the hunted every week of the year, and at this level where the competition is so elite, you're going to lose games, you're going to run out of steam. Penrith haven't run out of steam for freaking 4 years. Yeah. They were due a little period where they go down a little bit. So, overall, I would not be concerned one bit for them. And that's the thing, even in a period where they have not been anywhere near their best, they've still won games. They've got points on the board, so they're not going to be scraping for wins to get to the 8 in the back end of the year. However, there are a few little things that we can nitpick at, but they, I don't think Ivan would be too concerned.
Well, I mean, I don't know about concern, but he was pissed.
Yeah.
Holy. My biggest concern, not a concern, but the most obvious thing to me is they look like a tired footy side at the moment, and that may be by design. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers are not intentionally a bit flat at the moment to build into the year. But we have to remember they started last year. I don't necessarily think they started flat last year. They just looked clunky, obviously, you know, moving into the world with Mitch Kenny. But the biggest stat for me that is very un-Panthers-like, 25 ineffective tackles compared to the Warriors' 7. Very un-Panthers-like. Usually they dominate the ruck. Offloads Warriors 11-6. Look, they ended up getting their completion rate back up to 78%, but they usually sit around the 85, 80%. So, you know, I just think they look tired at the moment, and that's that. Well, not tired's the wrong word. Flat, and it could be by design, but there's no denying that this team looks a bit flat.
Yeah, and you know whether you want to call it tired, flat, whatever it might be, like as Timmy said, so they should be.
Yeah,
because we just haven't seen it up until this point. And mate, this game on Saturday night, Sharks who are high flying against Penrith, who I think it's pretty evident they were pretty pissed off the other night. Ivan, you know.
You ever thought the fire was gone out of Ivan Cleary? Go and watch that post-match press conference. Holy.
Yeah. And the other thing about them, like, due to be flat and why it's so hard for Premiership winning teams to get up for it the year after, like, they play so many extra games than everyone every year. Then you add in their rep contingent for the Kangaroos, the Kiwis, for Origin. They're playing so much more footy than every other club over the last 4-year period. So at some point, your body's just got to go, I just need a rest.
Yeah, and also their key player has essentially missed the season. Like, their number one guy, everything's based around, has, played 4 games maybe? And even, you know, the game that he came back and played, like, you know, a little bit flat, you know, wasn't setting the world alight. So definitely over the whole season, I'm still extremely confident we're going to get around finals time and go, oh my God, they're back. But they do look flat. There's just no denying it.
I'll say one thing, like with the Nathan Cleary injury, devastating for the Blues, but the Panthers low-key probably aren't sweet. Doesn't have to play 3 more Origin games. He can get a bit of a rest.
Same thing happened last year.
It did, exactly.
It happens every year.
Yeah.
It's happened the last 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
He's had an injury that's allowed him to sort of regroup.
They're probably going, he'll come back about round 20 odd, whenever he's scheduled, be fresh, firing, like, not bad for Penrith.
What do you reckon about Panthers?
Yeah, they just looked a little bit tired, I think, just a bit worn out, and you guys have hit the nail on the head, probably justified. One thing I was going to just ask your opinions on is that Dylan Edwards, maybe a little bit of a quieter game that he probably would have liked heading into Origin. Started pretty well, obviously, with the try. A little bit of unfair, probably feedback, I reckon, around how he went. But how did you think he went, and how do you think it kind of affects his Blues?
Oh, I don't think it affects his... I think he's done enough... Look, unless he comes out and has a Barry Crocker this weekend, I think he's done enough to put himself in, like, genuine between him and Tedesco contention.
Yep.
I think that... Yeah, I didn't think he was even that bad. Like, It just wasn't fucking unbelievable. We're talking about a guy leading the Dally M's right now.
Yeah, I don't think it really hurts him all that much.
Yeah, with you.
So with the Panthers, funnily enough, like, remember before their bye against Manly, I said they looked tired, but I thought it was more they'd peaked early in the season, dropped off a bit, the bye will refresh them. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe they are genuinely starting to feel the pinch of the last few premierships. It's going to be interesting how Ivan handles this, because if he, as disappointed as he is after that game, if he rides them hard now, you know, maybe they end up getting fatigued towards the end of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that. In regards to performances, I thought Luai played quite well. His try just before halftime, I think it was outstanding. Try assist, 165 metres. I thought he was quite good. I think Leota and Fisher Harris have had a bit of a flat year so far this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of develops over the rest of the season. Outside of that, Toto with an absolute Barry Crocker, only 237 metres, 71 post contact.
Do you think he's in strife for the Blues?
So crazy. What about you boys? Who else?
Yeah, I was just going to give Brian Toto another shout out, mate. He's just off the charts. I agree with you what you say about Fish and Mosley also, but there's equally just a big part of me that is just waiting for this team to hit September and then they go, all right, let's play.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I have no doubt they will, and I think they'll just be looking just to keep their head above water for the next few months, especially until Nath comes back. Paul Alamotti came in as well, jumping in at centre. It looks like he could be there for an extended period, so I'm keen to see how he develops in this side.
What a turnaround for Alamotti. You know, he backed himself. He went to a club with an incredible system. Still got some things he needs to work on, but if it is a long term that he gets that spotlight, what a life-changing moment.
Yeah. What I've seen with the Panthers over the last month in particular, I think their edge defence has been pretty uncharacteristically poor at times and letting in some tries that they haven't looked like doing in recent years. And we talk about next man up mentality where the Panthers have these players just come in and do a job, and it hasn't been overly different this season, but I think the chopping and changing of combinations. So Alamotti's come into the centres, he's played both edges, he's played on the wing. Nathan Cleary's been in and out, Schneider's been in and out. I think we're seeing a lack of the combinations defensively just get called out where, you know, one bloke will shoot, one bloke will hold back. This is the sort of things we haven't really seen with Penrith in a long time. Alamotti is one of these guys who he was called out for one of the tries there on the weekend. I think that's hurting them. I think with every game they play, that's going to get better and better. But that's what I've seen decline over the last 4 to 6 weeks.
I do think they have missed Critter. I think there's no denying they've missed Critter. I think that in these moments where they're a bit flat, clearly he's a locker room guy that gets the boys up, gets them. You know, I also think, although I agree with you in regards to combinations, that's 100%. The combinations have been changed so much. I think if Critter is there though, he's such a leader in the side. He wouldn't fix it, but his communication on the edge, I think, would help it appease a little bit, stop it a little bit. So just like the Api Coruscant, it did take him a while to get used to life with Api Coruscant. I do think that they are absolutely missing Critter right now, especially with Cleary out as well.
Yeah, and while, you know, I'm a bit critical of Alamotti around his defensive reads, but I think for a decent reason. And you look on the weekend, and this very much may have been part of the game plan, but Alamotti was, where was he? He was taken off with 16 minutes to go, and Tyrone Peachey went into centre. Could be wrong. I thought he may have been dragged for a few poor defensive reads there, so they slotted in Peachey at centre. Maybe that was the game plan.
Yeah, maybe.
So
maybe Peachey gets that spot then.
So whether or not they do it this week or not, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Peachey get it. I think probably Alamotti's done enough this season where you go, all right, mate,
give him a crack.
You've earned enough and done enough to get the first crack at it, but I think another poor game, I think Tyrone Peachey could be in there at centre.
That's fair. That's fair.
Reckon the Warriors had a game plan here or what? Liam Martin, right edge back row, made 49 tackles. Jack Cole, right edge, half on that side, 39 tackles. Isaac Tungo, right centre, 27 tackles.
Yeah. Good,
wow.
Good game plan. I mean, Webster, although hasn't been the best year for him so far, he continues to prove himself as a very good tactical coach.
It's like 112 tackles between those three dudes.
Very good tactical coach, Webster. I think that, pure speculation, but probably would sting Ivan Cleary a little bit that he's assistant coach. Well, I don't know. Maybe it didn't, but I guess for the yarn, it is a good yarn. Like the assistant comes and, out coaches him to a degree. And, we're talking about Ivan Cleary, who doesn't get mentioned in the GOAT category for coaches, but if we're calling the team the GOAT team, he has to be considered for the GOAT coaching roles. But I think Wayne Bennett still probably lands that position due to the premierships at multiple clubs.
And I know they didn't beat them last week, but the Doggies and Serraldo, the other old assistant, really got very close to a major boil over as well.
Okay, so look, Panthers, they're still the Panthers, guys. They'll be fine.